Hi, my name is Giancarlo Filippi, and today I'd like to talk about my experiences in Poland. So, my sophomore spring, I was in a production of Romeo and Juliet. And for this production, our director, Charlie Pepitone, had convinced a physical theater troupe known as Studio Mateka to come and work with us for about a week. They spent time with us, helping us prepare our monologues, helping us learn how to move on stage, things of that sort. And at the end of the whole experience, they asked myself and my cast member, Claude Mumbere, if we would want to come to Poland over the summer and work with them. Claude and I had no idea what this residency, I suppose, was going to be. It was very vague. It was just 2 weeks of working with them in a workshop and 2 weeks of working with them in a rehearsal process. And so we went not knowing at all what to expect. When we got there, we very quickly learned um, the daily routine. Every day we would wake up at 8, go for a run, which would take about an hour, get back, do yoga for another hour. We would then eat breakfast, and at 11, we would start our training. So we would go from 11 to 2 doing various like vocal and physical exercises. Get a break for lunch, and then 2 hours break to like sleep, clean, rest, whatever we really needed to do. And then at 5, we would resume, working until like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night on our own individual performances. After that, we would eat, and then depending on what we needed to do for the rest of the day, sometimes we would work until midnight. Rinse and repeat this process. And that was the first 2 weeks. It was wonderful. We met people from all around the world. There was a Ukrainian singer, a Turkish director, a Brazilian dancer, a Swedish acrobat. There were artists of all types, of all performative aspects, and it was incredible. That brought us to the second week, which is the core of what I'd like to speak about right now. So, turns out, we'd been asked there to try out and participate in a rehearsal process. There was going to be an international arts festival in Wrocław, Poland. And so this group, Studio Mateka, wanted to prepare a piece for it. So Claude and I were able to participate in this process. And what the process was building a production from the ground up. And the entire point of the process was to create something about Polish social issues. A little background on that. Um, Polish Poland was until very recently a communist country. Until about 30 years ago, when they transformed into a parliamentary system. And so because of that, there are a lot of social issues that were put on the back burner. It's a pretty socially conservative country. Women's rights aren't in the forefront. There's a lot of domestic abuse. Homosexuality is not widely accepted. So there's a lot of the queer community faces discrimination, and there's very little ethnic diversity, which creates quite a bit of racism. And so as a result, what this company wanted to work on was making a production tackling these issues. So my friend Claude and I worked, and in this process we learned a little bit more about things that we'd never perceived, because our entire experience was spent in this little farmhouse in the middle of the woods that had been remodeled into a performance space. So we had very little idea of what the Polish people were actually like. Now, this was all theory at this point. You know, we'd never experienced the community. We'd never gone out and walked around the cities. So we really had no idea what the social climate was like. So at the end of the entire process, Claude and I went and we stayed with one of the people we'd met over these 4 weeks. We went out on the town, went to bars. You know, we were really excited being in a European country for the first time. What we ended up experiencing was some surprising amount of racism. You see, my friend Claude was actually originally from the Congo, and so one day we were out. We had just gotten lunch, and we were exiting this coffee shop. There was this line of children, and they all were staring at Claude, whispering, and we couldn't quite understand what they were saying, of course, because it was in Polish. And so we go to the guy next to us named Bartek, and we're like, Bartek, what are they saying? They're whispering Murzyn over and over again. And apparently, Murzyn is the Polish equivalent of Negro. So these children had never actually seen a black man before, which was surprising for them. And it obviously upset Claude to some extent. It was a very surprising experience, like considering, yes, there is racism in the United States, whether it be socially or institutionalized, but it's not something that you necessarily see on the streets. And so it was a very interesting thing to take away, because I would assume most European countries were a little more socially progressive, but Poland was a little less so than I had expected.